We have 9 series of Miyabi knives at Cutlery and More, 2 of which are exclusives that we created with Miyabi. And in this video, you're going to see them all, learn all about their different features, and by the end, you're probably gonna have a really hard time deciding which one you're gonna add to your knife kit next because they are all absolutely stellar knives. In the Miyabi lineup, we have the Birchwood, the Artisan, Mizu, Koh, Koya, the original Kaizen, the Kaizen 2, Evolution, and the Miyabi Black. And all of these knives are handcrafted in Seki, Japan, so let's dive in. Okay, the Birchwood and the Black. These two are by far the showstoppers in the Miyabi lineup, but we're gonna get started with the Birchwood because not only is it just a stunning and unique knife, but it is much, much easier to maintain compared to the Black. Now, if you're a huge knife nerd like me and you watch this entire video and get to see the Black, then you might be just the person that the Black is perfect for. But for now, let's get started with the Birchwood. Aside from looking amazing, the Birchwood is also made with SG2 stainless steel with a Rockwell hardness of 63. And SG2 steel is one of our favorite steels here at Cutlery and More for many reasons. Now, SG2 steel is exclusive to Japan, so if you find any product that says it's made with SG2 steel, but it is not completely made in Japan, then most likely you have yourself a knockoff, which unfortunately is just a thing that we deal with in the cutlery industry. Anyway, SG2 is produced with powder metallurgy, which is where different metals are ground into a fine powder and mixed together to combine various alloying elements, resulting in stainless steel with a very fine microstructure. This allows for the blade to be hardened further without sacrificing toughness, and the result is basically a knife that will keep a keener edge and retain its sharpness longer. Think of SG2 steel as the perfect balance between having a blade that is super hard and durable, so it holds its edge, but it is also still manageable to sharpen at home. But if things go badly and you damage it because accidents happen, it can still be brought back to life. Now, the Birchwood has 100 layers of Damascus around its SG2 core, and the high polish gives the blade just an absolutely amazing look. But the handle is really what makes this knife stand out among the other Miaybi series. The handle is D-shaped and is made from natural Karelian birchwood, which provides a really nice balance at the bolster, as you can see. And the natural wood just gives this warmth to the handle that you can only get with natural wood. Now, aside from taking care of the blade itself, the only other thing you may have to do with this knife is every once in a while oil the handle. That natural wood will soak it up and it's gonna love it, and that's gonna prevent it from drying or warping, which is really gonna depend on where you live and the humidity. The biggest thing though with this knife, well, any knife regardless, but especially natural wood, is please do not let this soak in water submerge for any period of time. Just clean it immediately after use. I'll be honest with you, this is just one of those knives that you will kind of find yourself just staring at after you get it for a while, because it's just, it's a stellar looking blade. Next up, we have the Artisan and the Mizu. The Mizu being one of the 2 exclusive Miyabi lines we have here at Cutlery and More. Now, like the Birchwood, the Artisan and the Mizu are both made with SG2 stainless steel with a 63 Rockwell hardness. Both blades have a hammered finish, which is called tsushime. Now, it's often claimed that a tsushime blade with the hammered finish will help prevent sticky ingredients or foods like cucumber, potato, tomato from sticking to the side of the edge, very similar to how the hollows on the side of a chef's knife or a santoku would do. But in my personal experience, along with like everyone here at Cutlery and More, that's not exactly accurate. So instead of the hammered finish preventing things from sticking, instead what it does is it makes stuck food a lot easier to get off the side of the blade compared to one that is totally smooth. But here's the deal, regardless of whether foods stick or not, who cares? The tsushime finish looks absolutely amazing. As you can see, the Mizu and the Artisan blades are identical, so what really sets them apart would be the handles. The Artisan handle is unlike any other in the Miyabi lineup here, and the reason why is because it has a really rounded, deep belly to it. It almost resembles like a trophy bass with that big belly that hangs down. Now, the bigger, broader, wider, deeper handle doesn't mean that it's meant for people with large hands. My wife loves this knife, I love this knife, and our hands are very different sizes, so don't think of it as large handle, large hand. Think of it as it's all going to be personal preference and how it feels in your hand. The handle material of the Artisan is called Pakka wood, which is a wood and resin composite engineered for durability and is pretty resilient to a lot of abuse. Still, don't abuse your knives, but accidents happen, so in the case something does, this Pakka wood handle can handle a lot. The Mizu has the same handle as the original Miyabi line, the Kaizen. The D-shaped linen micarta handle has a modern looking black and gray toned grain with a stainless steel end cap, which helps provide an excellent balance to the knife. Now, if you've never heard of micarta, it's basically a resin and fabric engineered material that's more water resistant than wood and is super durable, just like the Pakka wood. We created the Mizu line with Miyabi because we had so many people say that they absolutely love the handle of the original Kaizen, but they wanted the blade of the Artisan and the upgrade to the SG2 steel. So that's exactly what we have here with the Mizu and Artisan Kaizen hybrid. Okay, before we dive into VG10, FC61, and MC66 steels, let's talk about Miyabi as a whole for a moment. So there are a couple of things that separate Miyabi from other high-quality knife makers in Japan. Most Miyabi knives feature a stainless steel bolster and a stainless steel end cap with their kanji logo engraved. The bolster and the end cap make Miyabi's knives heavier in the handle, which then makes them better balanced at the bolster compared to more traditional Japanese knives that don't have a bolster and are blade heavy. So at the pinch grip, you will feel the weight of the Miyabi knives in the handle, similar to a German chef's knife, but it's not quite as heavy overall. And speaking of the pinch grip, what's awesome about Miyabi knives is that all of their spines and heels are rounded out. So when you are at this pinch grip, regardless of whether you're high or low on the base of the blade, it is very comfortable on your fingers, especially after 20 or 30 minutes of prep. Now keep in mind that a perfectly balanced knife doesn't make the knife better. The balance of a blade is going to be completely up to your personal preference, the intended use of the knife, and just your overall experience with different knives. I have plenty of knives that are handle heavy that I love. I have plenty of knives that are blade heavy that I absolutely adore. And I have some like this that are just beautifully balanced right at the bolster here. Again, personal preference and how you're going to use the knife. Moving along here, every single Miyabi knife is ground to a fine 50-50 double bevel of around 9 to 12 degrees, depending on the blade, whether you get the chef's knives, which I'm showing you here, the 8-inch, you get the 6-inch chef's knife, a bread knife, a nakiri, let's see what else we got, a utility knife, a steak knife. And if you're new to knives, you're not sure about bevels, here we go. A 50-50 ground bevel is a perfect even point at the edge of the blade. Now, some knives are made with a single bevel, so it's straight up and angled this way, and that would be made for either right or left-handed people. But when you have a 50-50 double bevel, the knife will work perfectly for anyone, whether they are left or right-handed. And although the decorative mosaic pins and the beautiful red inlays don't really affect the performance of the blade, they are certainly a nice touch to many of the Miyabi knives. Okay, let's continue with the Koh and the Koya, which is our second exclusive series that we have here at Cutlery and More. Basically, these knives are identical except for the color of the octagonal handle. The Koh is a dark black and the Koya is a birch colored Pakka wood. The blades of the Koh and the Koya are made with what's called FC61 stainless steel. FC61 is a proprietary blend made for Miyabi with a composition that is very similar to VG10 stainless steel, but with some added elements to make it a little tougher. Like VG10, the FC61 has a Rockwell hardness of 61, which provides an outstanding balance between durability and edge retention, but the added elements also add a bit more toughness, which reduces the risk of chipping your blade. And as you can see here, the blades have a sand-blasted finish with a near-polished edge, which looks really cool and highlights the fine, sharpened edge of these knives. The Koh and the Koya have a much more elongated bolster compared to the other Miaybi series and has a really minimalistic, modern-looking design. And although it may look like the curves are sharp, this is very comfortable to hold in your hand, especially at the pinch grip. So a lot of people ask why we created a knife that looks the same, it just has a different colored handle. And to be honest with you, what's great is that yes, these knives are near identical except for the handles, but the handles are generally what are sticking out when you have a set in your kitchen. So if you like the darker black, if that suits your kitchen well, get the Koh. If you like the more natural birch handle in the block there, then you can go with the Koya. But whether you go with the black or the birch, the aesthetics of these knives will match any kitchen. All right, let's go to the OG Kaizen and the Kaizen 2. The original Miyabi design, the Kaizen, is made from VG10 stainless steel, which has been around since the 1980s and is considered to be one of the best stainless knife steels that come out of Japan. Now, the Kaizen 2 is newer and is made with the same FC61 steel as the Koh and the Koya, which you just saw. So both of these knives have a Rockwell hardness of 61, but as you can see, the Damascus pattern and texture is a bit different. The original Kaizen has a more polished Damascus blade, while the Kaizen 2 has a deeper etched matte texture throughout the Damascus layers. Now, the original Kaizen has a dark black and gray micarta handle, while the Kaizen 2 is made with a very similar looking Packawood handle. The other thing you can tell the difference in with these two knives is that the Kaizen 2 has a bit more rounded, girthier handle, not quite as girthy or rounded as the Artisan, but compared to the Birchwood and the Mizu and the black, the Kaizen 2 got a little bit more going on. The bolster of the Kaizen 2 is also slightly longer, and the D-shaped handle has a little bit more weight, so the balance is a little bit different than the original Kaizen. These are both excellent knives bearing the Kaizen name, and although they may have slightly different features, their price point comes in at basically the same. Okay, before we dive into the rest of this series, there are a few things that you should know about the origins of Miyabi. In 2004, the first ever trademarked German kitchen knife brand from 1731, Zwilling J.A. Henckels, acquired a Japanese knife factory in Seki, Japan that was already making some of the highest quality knives, and that is when the Miyabi brand was born. Seki is like Zwilling in Germany, being one of the knife capitals of the world and a center for cutlery production in Japan. While the German influence of Zwilling has brought some innovation to the production process of Miyabi knives, they are all still handcrafted, taking up to 130 individual steps to create, with some of the more complex designs being handled by up to 40 different artisans. Now, where the German knife-making influence of Zwilling really shines through is with the precision and control of the heat treatment of Miyabi blades. Now, Miyabi is one of the few knife makers in Japan that does their heat treatment in-house. All Miyabi blades undergo what's called ice hardening, which is a cryogenic process that results in a more consistent hardness throughout the entire blade, which improves its toughness and corrosion resistance. Now, when you think about the heat treatment and the ice hardening, think about when you're baking a cake or say brownies, the timer goes off, you pull the cake out and you notice that like this corner of the cake is not quite done, or over here your brownie batter looks a little loosey-goosey. Well, that's what happens to some knife brands. So with that, you never have to worry about your blade having different toughness throughout, or if you decide to go from the Koya here all the way up to the black one day, every single blade is going to have that same stability throughout. And finally, keeping with Japanese tradition, every Miyabi knife is sharpened by hand and is ready to use out of the box. The blades are stone ground, then they are sharpened on a whetstone, and then finished with a leather strop. And to simplify it, that three-part process basically ensures a highly polished and refined edge that you would expect from any premium knife made in Japan. Speaking of Zwilling, let's say that you love German knives with that full tang construction and a heavier blade, but you also want the steel of a Japanese knife. Well, then the Evolution series is most likely for you. The Evolution has that very familiar Western style handle with the 3 rivets, but it also has the Miyabi red inlays throughout and is made with a palm handle. And palm is another incredibly durable engineered material that Zwilling uses in almost all of their handles today. The Evolution series is made with the same FC61 stainless steel as some of the other knives here, and it has a nice matte finish, which is very similar to the Koh and the Koya. Now, in addition to the handle being very unique in this lineup, the blade is as well because it is taller and wider compared to the other Miyabi blades. And with that, you just get this beautiful balance that you wouldn't expect. It's similar to the other knives, but you have a heavier blade. I would say that it feels like you're holding a Zwilling Pro, but it's a bit lighter, and I would also say it has a little bit better balance. Basically, if you're a huge fan of that German Western style handle, but you want to enjoy a beautifully crafted Japanese blade, then the Evolution is that perfect hybrid. And then eventually you'll find yourself into a Japanese blade that's like this, and then to one that has no bolster, and you'll just continue your knife journey from there. Something to mention here that's true about all of the Miyabi knives, but especially this one, is this. If you look closely, you can see that all of the blades have the tip that is basically centered like a triangle to the spine and the heel with this nice curvature at the tip. What that allows, compared to some more traditional Japanese gyutos, is you get a really nice flow when you're doing the rock chop or when you're mincing. Now, because the Evolution has a wider and taller blade, you get even more of a flow. So if you are super comfortable with that European style rock chop and you want a Japanese feeling knife that you don't have to worry about gouging the tip of the blade into your cutting board when you are doing that rock chop, then I would highly recommend any of the Miyabis, but especially the Evolution. And finally, we have the Miaybi Black. The Black series features 132 layers of Damascus construction with one of the hardest steels in the cutting core, which is ZDP189, or Zwilling refers to it as MC66, which is another powder metallurgy stainless steel. Now, not only is 66 ridiculously high on the Rockwell hardness scale, it's also stainless steel, which makes it an even harder steel compared to other carbon steel knives that have the same 66 Rockwell hardness. For the Black series, it has a D-shaped handle that is made from the prized big leaf maple tree, and the wood is dyed a gorgeous black color, which pairs exceptionally with the blade's deep black Damascus finish. So the Miaybi Black, as stunning as it is with its 132 layers of Damascus, it does come at a premium price tag, which is about 20% more than the Birchwood series. So yeah, this is Miyabi's highest end and most expensive series, but that doesn't necessarily make it the best. And the reason it's not the best is because this knife is for a very particular type of person. This knife will hold an edge like its life depends on it, but with that comes the risk of cracking or chipping the blade. And honestly, that risk is all up to you and how you handle the knife. So if you're a huge fan of forcefully pivoting your blade when you're mincing, or just doing a really heavy rock chop, or using the edge of the knife to move product around your cutting board, then this knife is definitely not for you. And if you don't know how to properly use various grits of whetstone sharpeners, then this knife is also not for you. So if you do decide to invest in this knife, the Chef's, or any others in the Black series, please know that with that investment comes an understanding that you must use this blade properly and take care of it as if it's your firstborn. Okay, now that I have completely scared you away from this knife, please take a moment to just admire how beautiful it is. Now, if you are up to the task of taking care of one of these babies, you enjoy sharpening on various grits of whetstone, and you know how to use a strop, then I'm telling you, with this blade, you will finally experience what it's like to have the ultimate knife when it comes to sharpness and edge retention. All right, folks, we made it. There are all 9 series of Miyabi knives we have at Cutlery and More, including the exclusives, the Mizu and the Koya. Please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and check out all the Miyabi series and our extensive collection of curated Japanese knives at cutleryandmore.com. And if you have any questions about the Miyabi series or any ideas that you'd like to see in an upcoming video, be sure to let us know in the comments below. I'm Chef Brandon with Cutlery and More. Thanks for tuning in.